Welcome to Dynasty Playbook, Dynasty Fantasy Football's dedicated podcast. I'm your host, Drew. You can find me on Reddit at EAFMarine and on Twitter at DrewDotson NFL. With me are my co-hosts, Tyler and Scott. You can find Scott on Reddit at Stewie35 and soon to be on Twitter. We finally talked him into it. And you can find Tyler on Reddit at Barles and on Twitter at HBomb9508. And we want to give a special shout out to Chroma Rocks for the excellent work they do on our intro music. For those of you who just listen on YouTube, you guys haven't heard it, but give it a listen on iTunes or Stitcher, and they give us kind of a badass intro to use every week. So check them out. They play out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. They're pretty badass. So how you guys doing this week?
Feeling good. Feeling real good. Vacation. Woo!
Yeah, man. It's the weekend. You get the Memorial Day off. No work tomorrow, so got a full day and a half left of doing nothing. Pretty solid.
Yeah, and as we all celebrate this weekend, I just I always like putting it out there that it's more than just a 3-day weekend. We have this time off for a reason. And, it's kind of to remember, all those that gave everything for our country and, take a minute to remember them for everybody that's listening. So let's just bump into our show for the week, and we'll kick off with the IDP Spotlight, which is, we started off last week, and I think it's going to be a fun little segment for us to do. And this week we're going to do one overrated player and one underrated player. And which one do you guys want to start off with this week?
Let's do the overrated first.
All right. Scott, who do you think's overrated?
All right. Someone that I think goes a little bit too high would have to be Paul Posluszny. He's getting old in the age there. That would be the biggest reason for me. He's still able to produce for another year or two. If you're in a win-now situation, yeah, I can see you grabbing him, but I wouldn't take him over a lot of, linebackers that I would prefer with youth. Even if I am on a win-now team, I'm either going to wait and go somewhere else with that pick, or I'm going to get a younger guy that I think might break out that year or the next and go that way other than Paul Posluszny. The age is always a factor. You always got to be keeping that in mind, and he's getting up there, and he's going to drop off pretty quick here, I think, in the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he's got 2 to 3 years left. I think Telvin Smith is coming for a huge breakout, and I think that's going to steal a decent amount of his tackle numbers. I've honestly never been a huge fan of his talent, even when he was younger. But like you said, he's at that magical 30 number, so he's approaching the cliff. And for what you're paying, I think there's better guys you could be spending the capital on. There's not a whole lot for me to say about him.
Yeah, I mean it's an age thing, it really is. And Paz has been a beast for a long time in IDP. And if we're talking IDP redraft, we're still talking about a top 5 linebacker for 2015 probably. He's gonna feed next year. He's gonna get his points. But I think if you're taking him in the top 12, 15 rounds of a startup, you're just burning a pick there. You're gonna get a nice year, maybe 2 of production out of him, but that's all you're gonna get. He's just too old. He's getting brittle. He's breaking down. And Telvin is clearly the guy to own in Jacksonville. It's not even close for me. I'd rather have 1 Telvin Smith than 100 Paul Posluszny's for the next year or two. So, yeah, it's sad to see him move down the board, but it just has to happen. It is what it is.
Yeah. I think calling him almost a lock for top 5 linebacker for this year is kind of a stretch. I'd say he's a lock for an LB1, but there's a lot of guys who I would consider a lock for an LB1 this year. I think you got Levante David, Kuechly, Mosley, and Wagner, who, they got the youth and they're producing now at the top level. So, I mean, that doesn't really leave him a lot of spots to get in there.
I still think he'll be there next year. I still think he'll produce, and even on a per game basis last year before he got injured, he was beasting. You know, he was putting up big points every week. He's just too damn old to invest in. I mean, it's his dynasty, and yeah, we do get at times too caught up on age, but that number 30, the age of 30, is a real thing. You know, it's a tangible thing that you can reach out and touch. You just don't want to be investing in guys like that, period. Now, if you have a win now team and you can go get him for a 4th round rookie pick, hell, why not? Go for it. But at the same time, if you're not a win now team and you can sell him for a 3rd or 4th round rookie pick, sell him, because you're not going to be able to do it a year from now, I'm afraid.
Yeah, and you say, you know, age is one of those things you can reach out and touch. 30-year-olds really don't like it when you go up to the street and touch them. They get real upset about it, especially when you don't know them. They get upset and they yell at you, but that's kind of neither here nor there. Let's move on to our underrated player for the week, and this guy is, to me, he's very much on the verge of a breakout, and that's Avery Williamson out of Tennessee. Partially just due to situation, he's pretty much the only name in town now because besides Jarrell Casey, most of their guys are turds in that front 7. And he's young, he's talented, and there are guys that have him outside of, you know, an LB3 tier, which is insanity. If I'm in a startup draft, I'm drafting him as an LB2, just because I'm going to have him for a long time, and I think he's going to easily produce LB2 numbers. So, there's no way he should be going outside of the LB3 range.
Yeah, I agree, especially, you know, within the context of Dynasty where you know, we'll go back to age. I mean, he is super young. And by the end of last year, he was their 3-down linebacker. He was playing 100% of the snaps. Wesley Woodyard, that's come and gone. All right, Wesley Woodyard is a nice player. He's a former Bronco. I've always been a fan of his going back to when he was in college. But that ship has sailed. Zach Brown is another one of those guys that people have been stashing and waiting. And maybe he turns it on, maybe he doesn't. He's been hurt quite a bit. But Williamson, for me, is a top 20 linebacker. And most times you can get him at a better price than a top 20 linebacker, which is perfect for me because I'm all about getting guys at a cost, getting guys that can exceed their cost. You know, so if you can get Avery Williamson in the late teens, maybe even into the 20s in a startup, depending on your league. And I'm so all about it right now. I think I have him ranked as exactly LB20. And I'm really comfortable with that, and I think that he could even outproduce that. So for me, I'm right in there with Drew. He's an LB2 for me with the potential to exceed that. I think we're looking at a guy that could have 140, 150 combined tackles. You know, he could really be one of those just tackling machines. So love this kid. And he went way under the radar last year. I don't remember even seeing him selected in rookie drafts outside of just a couple of times in the deep leagues. So just a perfect buy right now.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love this kid. He had 50 tackles last season, and he didn't start or play at all for the first 2 games. Got limited time coming in after that, and then like Tyler was saying, ended up playing 3 downs towards the end of the season. Really like his athleticism. I think 23 is a good age to try and be picking people up at. Gives him quite a bit of time still to continue to develop. I have him as well in the mid LB2 range. I think that he could become an LB1. I don't think he's going to explode to a top 5 LB talent or anything like that. But I think that he could, if you had to measure LB1, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I wouldn't say go out there and just wait for him and draft him as your LB1, but I think he can easily excel past the LB2 range and just be pushing for those LB1s. Really like him. Like I said, youth, And I agree that those linebackers there in Tennessee are getting older, and they're going to need guys like this. So I think it's a perfect time to get him before he gets too much more hype. I think he'll be playing a bunch to start this season out, and people are going to hop on that train pretty quick. So I'm definitely grabbing him up now if I can. I already have him in a few leagues, and loving every minute of it.
Yeah, and I think that that pretty much hits the nail on the head. You guys have anything else you want to touch on with him? No? All right. Well, let's move into our submitted questions for the week. We've got some more good ones. And this first one comes from Mr. Carlos Danger, and it says, "There's been a good deal of talk coming out of Tennessee that the offense will be molded to better suit the weapons that were drafted, namely Mariota. Any input on how this is going to take place, what changes to expect, and what would be the fantasy ramifications of those changes?" Personally, I think that any molding to suit Mariota's skills is just going to fail abysmally until Wisenhunt gets fired. He's shown no ability to effectively use any quarterbacks other than already established talents like Phillip Rivers and Kurt Warner. He hasn't ever. And I think this is going to directly impact DGB and Trey McBride's development, as well as any chance Justin Hunter may have had to possibly rise from the ashes. I think it's also going to leave Kendall Hunter as the same kind of middling option as he was.
Yeah, I unfortunately going to have to agree. I don't think they did anything to, radically improve that offense, or that, just because you're going to try and mold the offense a little bit more to your weapons doesn't mean it's going to go from what it was, pedestrian at best, I would call it, to being some explosive offense. I don't think that you're going to be seeing multiple wide receivers even fantasy relevant out of their offense. I think that even the receivers that you would consider fantasy relevant aren't going to be consistent. Really, I'm trying to stay away. I have too much in Kendall Wright already, and I've done my best to stay away from Trey McBride and DGB. Haven't succeeded too much, but this offense is just frustrating to watch. You hope that these talents that are going there can get some different coaching, or maybe just a different situation, get out of there. I'm not expecting anything big to happen from Tennessee. Expect it to be about the same as it was last year. So I wouldn't think it's going to make a huge impact.
Yeah, Tennessee in the short term just does little to nothing for me. I think Kendall Wright's probably going to be what he's been, a somewhat high volume possession receiver with a low yards per catch. As far as DGB, Hunter, Trey McBride, who the hell knows? I have no idea what to even think about that situation. I do think Mariota can be successful at this level, but I don't think he's going to come right out of the gate and be a startable play. I really, really don't. I mean, what he did in college and what he's going to be asked to do in the NFL are two entirely different things. So could he have an RG3 type rookie year? Yeah, I suppose it's within the realm of possibility, but I'm not holding my breath.
No, I'm right there with you. I think Mariota is more than capable of succeeding at the NFL level. I just don't think he's going to do it with the current coaching staff. I think he needs somebody that's a little more capable of developing talent and a little more capable of having some, actual creativity with developing a game plan. And they have to do something because they have some talent on the offensive line, but it did not perform like it last year. At all. So, unless you guys have anything else for this one, we're going to move on.
Good.
All right. So, we'll move on to our weekly question from our buddy Alex Kimball. He says, "Who are some of your buy low veterans?" So, I'll let you kick us off, Tyler.
Roddy White, man. Roddy White's 1,000 years old, and Drew hates his guts, but Roddy's still going to put up some numbers next year, period. If you're a contender, you can go out and get him for peanuts. Andre Johnson's another guy very similar to Roddy. I think they'll post a similar stat line this year. Same kind of deal. And then my all-time favorite buy low QB, Tony Romo. Tony Romo's just been doing it year after year after year. So those are three older veteran types that if I have a contending team, I'd like to get on my roster and you can get them at a low cost. So those are three guys that I just kind of wrote down as my buy low vets.
Yeah, I think as far as wide receivers go, I'm not going to go with anyone too old, but someone I think you could buy kind of low right now would be Brian Quick. The injury brought him down. I think a lot of people are still kind of low on him. So many wide receivers there in St. Louis that everyone thinks is going to be the next breakout star. Brian Quick's my guy. That's who I think is going to be the next guy to have a big year. He was looking real good at the beginning of last season before he got hurt. And I think you can get him for cheaper than what he's going to be worth at the end of the season. So I'm going out and buying Brian Quick. And I had one other guy, QB. I don't know how everyone else is going to feel about this, but that would be Carson Palmer myself. I think, once again, guy that got injured, so he's underrated as far as that goes. And, yeah, he doesn't have a lot of years left on him, but I think you can get him for peanuts as well, just like you could with Tony Romo. And he's got some talent out there on that Arizona roster, so I don't think it'll be a very soft season for him.
Yeah, you totally sniped me on the Brian Quick pick. He's another buy low guy for me. I don't know if he qualifies as a veteran still or not, but my biggest buy low veteran, if I'm got a competing team, is Frank Gore. I think he could easily put up RB1 numbers with Indy's defense, with Indy's offense. I think Josh Robinson's not going to do a whole lot to steal carries from him, and we saw what Ahmad Bradshaw did in there last year, and Frank Gore is 3 times the runner that Ahmad Bradshaw's ever been. I'm not buying him as a long-term asset. If I'm buying him, I'm expecting production from him this year, and anything after that is just icing on the cake. In terms of quarterbacks, Tony Romo is a great choice, but I think that the price to acquire might still be kind of high as far as QBs go. I love Carson Palmer as a one-year play. I have him as my backup for Andrew Luck because I picked him in probably the last round, so I'm definitely on the Carson train. But my buy low quarterback's going to be Joe Flacco. I think he's never had the weapons in Baltimore that he's going to have now. I'm not expecting him to be some kind of elite option, but for the price you're going to pay, I don't think you're going to be able to have a quarterback that's going to produce at least somewhat steady numbers that he's going to put up. And I mean, he's not going to lose you games. Is pretty much why I'd be buying him. And you could probably pick him up for a mid-third round pick because most of the time, if guys are buying Flacco, they've got him as their QB2. How about any buy low tight ends for veterans? You guys got anybody?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know.
I got nothing.
Witten put out something this week that says he could play for another 4 or 5 years. I'm buying that, right? No.
Yeah, I saw that, and I got concerned about him playing past this year because of his dementias in this advanced stage. I don't know how much longer he's going to be able to play at all.
Yeah, that's what I thought when I read it. I was like, sure you can, Witt. Sure you can, buddy.
Whatever you say. My buy low tight end is going to be Delaney Walker. Because, I mean, if this whole Tennessee thing just goes to shit, I feel like the tight end is going to be Mariota's dump off more than Kendall Wright will be, and just out of necessity. So he may not be. I mean, he'll be streamable. So.
What do you think about Vernon this year? You think Vernon could have somewhat of a rebound this year?
Not a chance.
Not a chance. I'm not ready to just say that wholeheartedly that he's just completely done. The dude was boss in 2013.
Yeah, I don't know. The decline was sharp, and I very much see that them kind of continuing down the path that they were. Greg Roman didn't know how to utilize him, and I feel like they kind of kept the same guys in house as they did before. So, I mean, he could. He very well could. And for what it's going to cost you to get him, I'd be willing to take a bet on it, but I wouldn't be rolling him out there week one hoping for him to put out numbers.
Yeah, if he's your week one starter, you're probably not in good shape at tight end.
Yeah, I'd say there's no chance that he doesn't bounce back. I mean, how much does he have to do to not bounce back? It's not going to take a lot to improve over what he did last year. So I say, yeah, he could be a buy low candidate in that situation. As hopefully a tight end 2 that you're just looking to plug in for injuries or bye weeks or something like that, or maybe when he gets a really good matchup. But I agree. I don't think we're going to see 2013 numbers from him. I don't think that's in the cards anymore.
Yeah. How do y'all feel about Jared Cook?
No.
I've never been a Cook fan.
Yeah, I've been down that road a couple times before. I'm hopping off the train. Yeah. If I was ever on it, I'm completely off now.
Yeah. I hopped off that Cook train and hopped on some Cook's trains. But I think that's a pretty good amount of veterans we hit on. So let's move on to our next question. Comes from Alvarn DC. His first question is: which running backs do you believe have the most risk of losing their starting jobs? Joique Bell, Bishop Sankey, Lamar Miller, Justin Forsett, and are there others? I mean, to me, out of the guys he listed, I think Joique Bell's the easy pick. I've never been a fan of Joique Bell's game. He's 29. Amir Abdullah is extremely talented. I think they really like him, and I think if Zach Zenner shows well, he could beat him out in training camp. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, I would say out of this list, Joique is most likely to lose his job just because Abdullah. Abdullah's a nice player, and he's small, and so people automatically want to pigeonhole him into this. He's a third down running back, but Abdullah can be a 3-down back, and Joique is the definition of a plotter, and he has been super consistent the last few years. I mean, if you've been able to plug Joique Bell into your lineup the last couple of years at running back as an RB3 or a flex or something like that, you've been pretty satisfied with the results. But he's just not a good athlete, and he's just too damn old. He's just kind of boring. Joique was the king of zero RB strategy. If you went zero RB the last couple of years, you're able to snag Joique a little bit later. It's worked out pretty well. I think Stanky is going to hold that job through this year. I think David Cobb is a bum. I do not like David Cobb. And it's a rare situation where I think Sankey is infinitely more talented than that person who's behind him. But I think Sankey's going to hold that job, and I think we see a decent season out of Bishop Sankey this year. I really do. And a lot of people are going to disagree with me on that, but I think Sankey's going to be okay this year.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you guys, but just to switch it up, I'll talk about Lamar Miller a little bit. I think he won't lose his starting job. I think he'll keep it throughout the season, but I think he's going to see significantly less time. I think they'll definitely have to work in Ajayi, and for some reason, Miami just doesn't seem to trust Miller. They keep taking him out. They brought back Daniel Thomas or whatever that bum's name is. So I think Miller has the most talent out of all the names that were listed here between Bell, Sankey, Miller, and Forsett. But I think that the offense or the team in general, just there is no trust there. So I can see him losing a lot of time, but I think in the end his performance will beat out Ajayi this season, and he might be looking for a new home after that. I believe his contract's up. So, you guys still there?
Yep, we're still here. All
right. So we want to talk about which running back has the greatest possibility for a breakout season.
I actually I had something I wanted to add on for the risk of losing their starting job.
Go ahead.
Well, Tyler, you brought up David Cobb. David Cobb's best comparable player was Sean Green, which should just inspire all sorts of confidence in him as a breakout player.
But the Tennessee Titans love Sean Green.
Yeah, which they've also been just a haven of intelligent, well-thought-out coaching decisions.
Yes, they have.
But I think a running back that's not on the list that's also a great chance to lose their starting job is Andre Ellington. I think they got David Johnson behind him, and I think David Johnson is just a better version of everything that Andre Ellington is. And Andre Ellington is already old as balls. He's injury prone, and David Johnson is just better than him.
Yeah, I've been scooping David Johnson all over the place. And, of course, I fell in love with David Johnson the first time I turned on the tape at Draft Breakdown. I was like, man, this guy's something else. And I agree wholeheartedly with that. I think David Johnson's going to end up being the bell cow when the dust settles. I think Ellington's still going to get his share of touches as a COP back because that's where he's going to be better served as a COP back. But David Johnson is the back to own in Arizona for me, and it's not even close. I can't really think of a scenario where I would rather have Ellington than David Johnson. So I'm all about David Johnson, all about him.
How do you guys feel about, wow, I just drew a blank. Holy crap.
Yes.
Try it. You can do it.
I just give me like 50 minutes and I'll have it. Who was I just going to say? Somebody that's probably going to lose their job. No, he's terrible, but no.
He already lost his job to Shane Vereen. Stephen Ridley already beat out Chris Ivory. Done, sir, done.
It's already done.
You were talking about David Johnson, and that made me think of somebody else, but now I have no idea who. Just a huge fart. No, not I do like Duke Johnson, but no, that's not who I was thinking of. Trey Mason. What do you guys think is going to happen with him after Gurley comes back?
I think that he's gonna beast for the few weeks that Trey Mason is on the PUP list, and then after that, I think they're going to get enough carries to where Trey Mason is an RB1, and Trey Mason will probably get enough carries to be a flex.
You said a lot of Trey Mason in there. I think you meant some Gurleys.
Yeah, I might have Trey Mason on the brain. Gurley will be an LB1. Trey Mason, Todd Gurley, and all right, my wires are crossed. Tyler, just go.
Yeah, I think I could see them limiting Gurley's work, especially initially, right? If he does start out on the PUP and they bring him in, I don't see any way that they're just going to give him 25 carries, first rattle out of the bucket. So I think Trey Mason has quite a bit of value, especially for the year of 2015. If you're doing MFL 10s or something, Trey Mason's going to be a fine value pick because you're going to get many usable weeks out of him. And at some point, he's essentially going to become a handcuff to Gurley. When the smoke clears, that's what it's going to be, unless he moves on. Just because Gurley's just an animal. But
if you still have Zach Stacy, throw him away.
Well, Zach Stacy just got beat out by Stephen Ridley and Chris Ivory, evidently, right? And he's a freaking Jet now. Because the Jets are like, hey, we need 3 plotters. Let's get 3 of them. Surprised they didn't re-sign Sean Green.
Oh, man. It's priceless. But I disagree that Trey Mason will essentially be a handcuff because I think Jeff Fisher's going to want to run the ball more, especially with Nick Foles at quarterback. I'm not claiming Trey Mason is going to have his own independent RB2 value, but if you've got deeper starting lineups, he's one of those guys that I would have no problem with if I'm putting at running back, having him as my RB2 if I've got 5 solid wide receivers, 6 solid wide receivers.
That's a lot of carries, though. How many times can they run the ball in a game? 40, 50 times? If they're doing that, hell yeah, sure, why not? But, that's a lot. The dude's going to need 8, 10, 12 touches a game, and I don't think he's going to get a whole lot of third down work. So.
Well, if they run it 35 times a game, give Gurley 25 carries, that could turn into 10 carries for Mason because they're not going to need Cunningham for third down work. So, because they got Gurley.
We're forgetting about Benny C.
And
Benny
maybe
C's the man.
I'm writing my own narrative.
You try to make
let
yourself
me
feel
just make up my fantasy land. You know what? It's the only way I'm making it through the day. But let's move on to the second part of our question, and it says, which running backs do you see as having the greatest possibility for breakout seasons? Latavius Murray, Lamar Miller, others. What do you got?
Latavius Murray, sure. Why not? I have no idea what to make of the whole Oakland thing. Murray's price is getting up there, and there's a lot of speculation involved. Then we got old T. Rich banging around out there. I still think Halou is the guy that I would rather own in Oakland overall, and a lot of that's based upon his price. But I think Halou's, if he's not the leading receiver out of the backfield next year, I'll be really surprised. As far as Lamar Miller, just like Scott was saying, they just don't get him enough touches. It's going to be hard for a guy to break out on 15 touches a game. So, out of the rookies, we already talked about David Johnson and Amir Abdullah. I think both of those guys could really come on hard this year and be solid plays for this season. You know, for the year of 2015, they have some serious potential to put up some big numbers.
Yeah, my rookie that I'm really paying attention to, besides David Johnson, who we touched on already a little bit earlier, would be TJ Yeldon. I got him in, I think, only like 2 leagues. But I wasn't a big fan of him, to be honest, when we were doing the breakdown. But, you know, he went high in the draft, or decently high, not really that high. But, you know, and Jacksonville's a good situation for him. I think that he can come in and produce decently. I'm thinking RB2, low RB2 numbers from him. So that's someone that I think is going to come out pretty hot for a rookie.
Yeah, my running back that I'm guessing for a breakout season is already 28 years old. Yeah, I know, sounds crazy, huh? But I think it's gonna be C.J. Spiller. I think he's never been in an offense that's going to utilize his skill set as well as New Orleans is going to be able to. And he's never really had a legit season before. And I mean, technically, he's had some decent seasons.
He was pretty good in 2012.
But, I mean, what was his final stat line?
Yeah, it wasn't like 1,500 yards or anything great, but he was.
It was
legit.
efficient, but it wasn't. I thought it was a more efficient stat line than it was a high total stat line.
Yeah, it was. His yards per touch were. And I don't have the numbers in front of me.
It
But
was
I
like
remember
5.7.
Yeah, his yards per touch were pretty nasty.
Yeah. And I might be wrong. I might have misremembered, but I thought his total yardage wasn't very high. But
So let's see. I got it right here.
I might be wrong.
Got it right here. He had 2012, 207 attempts, 12.9 attempts per game, I guess. Yeah, 12.9 attempts per game, 1,200 yards, average 6 yards a carry, about 77 yards a game, 6 TDs. Let's see what he did in the passing game here. 43 receptions, almost 500 yards with 10.7 yards per catch.
That's a solid season.
So 1,700 total yards. Never mind. I'm dumb.
I mean, if he can do that in New Orleans, that's a beast right there. I mean, that is a hell of a play. And you're the Saints guy. Are they going to use him in the return game any?
Not a chance.
No?
No way. I mean, we've got some solid return guys. We've got Jalen Saunders worked great as a kick return guy for us towards the end of the season last year. We just drafted we didn't draft him, but we brought in Marcus Murphy as a running back to act as a possible kick returner. We still like Cooks to return punts sometimes, which I'm not a big fan of, just because
You're worried about him getting hurt.
Exactly.
Because he's such a tiny little guy.
Yeah, but he's quick. But he's also got a thick little frame, so he might be all right. But I don't see them using Spiller in special teams, especially with the injury history he's had. I wouldn't chance it.
Yeah, that's fair. I had no basis for that. I just kind of wonder because I know Buffalo used him a little bit in the return game last year.
Yeah. And maybe that they were doing that just to injure him because Marone didn't want to have to play him in offense.
Well, there you go. Just keep feeding F-Jacks, man. He'll never die.
Yeah. But that's also because Doug Marone was a chode.
Chode Marone. What a name.
I like the C.J. Spiller pick. I can see that happening. C.J. Spiller, new offense, new coordinators, new, hopefully, utilization for his sake. I could definitely see him putting up something closer to what he did in 2012. I don't think we're going to see 2012 numbers out of him. So many weapons there still in New Orleans, so I don't think he'll get 1,700 yards. But, I could see him being an effective low RB2, high RB3 type play or a flex guy, someone you could definitely plug in.
Yeah, I think he'll be pretty good in New Orleans, but
New Orleans?
I'll murder you. I feel like we gotta talk about murder every week now.
As soon as he said it, I was like, oh, he said it again.
I agree. I don't think we're probably looking at 2012 total numbers, but I would not be surprised to see that same level of efficiency from him on a per carry or per catch basis. But you guys have anything else to touch on for possible breakouts?
No, I think we covered it well.
Let's move on to Bane the Geech, our buddy. His first question. He wants to know: would you rather have a lisp or pronounce your R's as W's? And Scott, we'll let you start because you have a slight lisp. What do you think?
I'd prefer the lisp. I'm not even gonna start on the path of the R's as W's. I'm just gonna go ahead and say I'd rather have the lisp, and I'll keep it at that. Let you guys have fun with those R's as W's.
Yeah, I would much rather have the lisp. I gotta think. Yeah, I don't want to talk like Elmo Fudd.
I think I gotta take the lisp too, but man, I don't know that I'd be able to pass up the opportunity to do a killer Elmer Fudd impression. Be very, very quiet. I'm hunting wabbits. I mean, it'd be a pretty good party trick, but I don't know that anybody'd be able to take me serious in like real life.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do this podcast with you if you pronounced your R's as W's. I'm just going to say that right now.
I mean, I don't think I would have volunteered to publicly speak to people if I did my R's as W's. I feel like I'd be more working on writing. But his second question is a more serious question. He says, in an IDP format, who could you see being a star that is going late in drafts? It could be an IDP position or just IDP in general. And I think we should hit defensive line, linebacker, and defensive back. So for defensive line, for me, somebody that's going late that I think could be a star, I think is going to be Jarrell Casey. And I think I probably just sniped Tyler there. But this guy has fallen way, way too far in terms of in drafts. And he's just, it's unwarranted. He's way going to outperform his ADP.
Yeah, I agree. Jarrell Casey's a top 12 lineman for me. I'm going to go a little deeper. I like Coney Ely. He's in a really good situation out there where there's not a whole lot in his way. And another guy, DeMarcus Lawrence in Dallas, who was one of the only defensive ends we could have gotten last year out of the rookie draft. Didn't do a whole lot. He didn't play much. He was hurt. Evidently, he's packed on some pounds and is pushing 260, 270 now. And obviously, we know Greg Hardy. God knows what's going on with Greg Hardy, whether he plays, when he's going to play, what's he going to do when he does play. So I like DeMarcus Lawrence to produce next year. And I think I just sniped Scott, too. So we're just firing off sniper rounds here today.
Yeah, DeMarcus Lawrence was definitely my guy. I really like him. Pretty much everything you said is what I had. Just a lot of talent in this kid. Obviously, still super young, second-year guy. I could definitely see him start to make an impact this year. If at the very worst, even if he's not able to get too much action. That just gives me another year to grab him in more leagues, and I think it's not long before he breaks out.
Yeah, and another guy that's a little bit later for me, so I'm not giving you guys that are just kind of getting underrated. If you're in a non-defensive tackle required league, the position kind of gets ignored. I'd be looking at guys like Aaron Donald, who are going to fall a lot farther than they should. I think he's got a chance to put up pretty high defensive line numbers. Because, if you're playing defensive tackle leagues, this guy is far and away the number one defensive tackle. And maybe it's, it's just the leagues I'm in, but if you're in non-defensive tackle leagues, they tend to fall a decent bit
far.
Yeah, they do fall far, and there's just a handful of them that you even want to play in D-line flex. But Aaron Donald, man, I got no issues with having Aaron Donald. Even if, let's say, I were punting D-line, which I don't really like to do, but if he were my DL1, I'm pretty cool with that. I think Aaron Donald's going to feast. As far as the guys on the back end, my biggest buy low this offseason of the safeties is Denoris Searcy, who's moved on to Tennessee. We saw what Michael Griffin did in Tennessee, and Michael Griffin is not #good. He is not a good football player. Denoris Searcy is a good football player. I think with Denoris Searcy, we're looking at a guy who can put up high-end DB1 numbers in this scheme. So I'm all about getting me some Searcy. And I did a startup a couple weeks ago where we could start up to 4 defensive backs, and Searcy is my DB4, and I'm just doing backflips over it because I think he's gonna really shine.
Yeah, as far as defensive backs for myself, I haven't done too many startups this season, so I'm not exactly sure where all these guys are going. But a guy we talked about last week, Tyrann Mathieu, I think is a good pick. I think he's going a little bit later because of his injury issues and his lack of use there in Arizona so far. But I think if he can stay healthy this season, I don't see a reason that he won't really start to shine there. And as well as a cornerback that surprised me last year, the rookie out of St. Louis, E.J. Gaines. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of him, but somebody that I've really enjoyed watching. He's an absolute tackle monster. So I think he's going to be someone that in a position just similar to the defensive tackle that's usually not required in a lot of leagues. A guy that's going to slip a little bit, especially since cornerbacks are so up and down most of the time with their production. This kid was actually pretty consistent last year, so someone that I'd like to pick up in the later rounds for pretty cheap anyways.
Yeah, for me, I've got one that's kind of late, and that's Kenny Vaccaro, and he's fallen because his 2014 season was extremely lackluster, and a lot of that had to do with just the whole Saints defense was just piss poor. It seemed like everybody forgot how to tackle all at once. But if you look back at 2013, Kenny Vaccaro, even as a rookie, he was tearing it up. He gave you quite a few defensive back 1 weeks. And I think he's got a pretty good chance to return to form. And if he's not giving you DB1 weeks, he's pretty much a lock for DB2. And a guy that's much, much farther is a guy that's kind of close to my heart. I loved him in LSU, is Eric Reed. Eric Reed is, except for in your deeper leagues, is practically undrafted. And I think this guy's got a decent chance to bounce back. Tyler, I don't care what you think. Nobody asked you. I like Eric Reed. I think he's got a decent chance to have a bounce back.
Yeah, should we talk about linebackers real quick? Obviously,
I guess it's important in IDP.
Yeah, I mean, some of them, Obviously, there's Avery Williamson, who we all discussed a little bit earlier as a buy low candidate. Someone I like is Kyle Van Noy out of Detroit there. Rookie last year, they drafted him early second round. Kid was injured a lot last season, so he didn't see too much playing time. But I don't see why he can't make the field this season and start to make an impact. I don't think he'll even be ultra relevant this season, maybe a low LB3, probably more like an LB4. But I don't see any reason this kid doesn't start producing soon after that. So it's someone that I'm getting later in my drafts if I can, and loving every minute of it.
Yeah, I really like Van Noy, and I've got him stashed away on a few rosters. I remember watching him at BYU, and they just absolutely donkey kicked UT one year. And I remember thinking, I think he wore number 3. So Van Noy was the best player on the field, and the second best player wasn't even close. I mean, he was good. He was really good, and I think he's going to start at Sam for Detroit day one. And he's a really good pass rusher, too, so I wouldn't be surprised to see one of those situations where, like, they go to the nickel and they bring Van Noy up and he's rushing the passer, so he can give you some versatility there. If you like high-ceiling linebackers, I think Van Noy's a really nice buy. My guy's Danny T, man, Danny Trevathan. I'm going to show my Broncos homerism here. Danny Trevathan is an animal, an absolute animal, and he's had these crazy injuries, and they're worrisome injuries. But Danny Trevathan right now is a guy that you can acquire at LB4 or LB5 price who has the potential to be a legit LB1, like a high volume tackle producer. So I'm buying up shares of Danny Trevathan like it's going out of style this offseason because they're cheap and the risk-reward is primo. The risk is very little and the reward is super high on a guy like him.
Yeah, let me make the decision unanimous for our love on Kyle Van Noy. He would have been one of my picks for just a late round guy. I've got him all over the place. I drafted him at the bottom of like my deeper rookie drafts for IDP leagues. But my guy's going to be Manti Te'o. I don't believe in Denzel Perryman at all. I think he's a bum, and I think he's got a chance to be a legit 3-down linebacker. He's had some problems with injuries, and I think that's a lot of the reason people don't remember him. He hasn't had a lot of chance to produce. But if he can stay on the field, I think he's got a huge chance to outproduce anything he's got right now and gain some real value.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And like Donald Butler and Perryman are both consistently ranked higher than Te'o, and I just don't see it. I really don't. I think Donald Butler's just a hack. If there ever was a hack, it's Donald Butler. He is undraftable to me. I didn't even rank him. And most people will call me crazy for that, but I didn't even bother putting him in my rankings. And Perryman to me he's a 2-down linebacker. I mean, and maybe he'll surprise me. But I don't think so. So for me, Te'o is the linebacker to own in San Diego. And that's going to be construed as a hot take for me and Drew both. And then I guess on some level it is, but he would be the one that I would want out of those 3.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look back to his tape when he was at Notre Dame, I mean, this guy was the shit. I mean, you don't just forget how to do that. He just needs to be on the field and get an opportunity to really show it.
Maybe all of that skill came from his girlfriend.
Yeah, what a mess that was. But he might have been the best player in college football that year. I mean, I guess he was a senior. I don't know if he came out early or not, but I mean, he was good, making plays on the ball, getting the defense in position, taking a Notre Dame team that wasn't all that great to a really excellent record. And it was a Heisman finalist, and for an inside linebacker, that just doesn't happen very often. So maybe I'm just swooning over Manti Te'o at Notre Dame, but you don't lose that instinct, like Scott said. That doesn't just go away.
Yeah, no, I agree with both you guys' players there. I love Danny Trevathan. A couple freak accidents these past 2 seasons have kept him off the field for the most part. And Manti Te'o, it's someone that people are forgetting about. Everyone gets excited about rookies, so Perryman's got a lot of buzz going around about him, and people think that the guy to beat out would be Butler. So I think it's not a bad take.
All right, and let's move on to our next question. It comes from @14teammocker, and he wants to know, is the heir to Colston on the Saints roster right now, and who is the best value at ADP? I honestly think the heir to the Colston throne is not on the roster right now. As much as I love Nick Toon, he's already 26 now. He'll be 27 during the season, and that's just too old. He might fill in for Colston as, that possession receiver for a couple of years. But then they're going to have to replace Toon. I think we're going to draft a wide receiver next year. maybe we'll spend a second-round pick on him. Maybe we'll spend a first. Who knows? I'm way past the point of trying to ever guess what the hell that front office is trying to do. But I think by far the best value at ADP right now is Toon, because I think Sontavious Jones and Brandon Coleman are essentially worthless at their ADP. Unless you're playing best ball and you're taking them in like the last rounds, it's almost a waste. I don't think either of them. If either of them even make the 53-man roster, I'd be fairly shocked.
I'm going to be honest, I don't know who either of those other players are besides Nick Toon. So I'm going to go ahead and say, yeah, Nick Toon. Woo!
Yeah, let's just defer to Drew on this one. It's got to be Toon, right? That's the only one I could even – that's the only thing I can think of. Because, like, I asked him a few weeks ago about Brandon Coleman, and he's like, yeah, no, you don't want Brandon Coleman. So let's go with Drew and his Nick Toon man love.
I mean, Brandon Coleman, I can see the appeal. He's a big-bodied wide receiver. He wasn't bad at Stanford. It's just he went undrafted for a reason. And he got put on the practice squad and didn't get claimed for a reason. It's just the signs all point to him just not having it. So it's Toon or bust. So I think if you're investing in a guy, I'd grab Toon now, and I would hope he picks up a ton of value, and then he'd be on my sell list. Because you're not going to – I don't see you be able to, ride him into a couple of championships. I think he's just going to be a guy that's going to pick up some value, and you're going to be able to utilize him for a while. So with that, we're gonna ride into our next question. Comes from @BreezeIDP. And guys, if you are playing IDP and you are not following this guy, you are doing it wrong. Guy is at the forefront of the IDP revolution. He's killing it out there. He writes for DLF. He does some of the rankings out there. His rankings are on point, except for his Ziggy Ansah take. I mean, if you're looking at that, just you can ignore that. He should be a lot higher. But his question is, he says he's an anti-homer and he hates Bears players in fantasy football usually. He thinks Bostic is terrible, and do we agree, or is he just an anti-homer? He thinks that Mason and Jones will man the middle. Is he discounting Bostic too soon for seeing some terrible plays of his?
No. I think Breeze is dead on point here. It's Jones and Foster. Those are the two guys I want to own. There's been a little bit of buzz about Shea McClellan moving to the inside, and that sounds like fun because Shea McClellan's such an animal. I mean, good Lord. I think my Chihuahua could run over Shea McClellan in the hole. But, yeah, Bostic for me, I just don't want anything to do with him. I like Jones, and I think if Foster can finally put it all together, I think Foster could have a sneaky good year this year. I really do. He could kind of fall into another one of those buy low guys, an IDP guy that you can get at a good price that can outproduce this ADP. So those are the two guys I like. I picked up Jones in several leagues last year when he started coming on and getting some snaps, and I thought he looked really good. So if Bostic somehow becomes a 3-down linebacker for the Bears and productive, I will be extremely surprised.
I agree. I think Bostic is no good, to put it politely there for you guys. Yeah, I think Mason and Jones are probably a better take on that. I'm not super familiar with the Bears situation there, but definitely Jones. I just don't see Bostic making it for long. Even if he started day one, I don't think it would take very long for him to get bumped out, but I don't even see him starting day one. So, yeah, I think that got to keep away from Bostic completely. No need.
Say no to Bostic.
Hashtag say no to Bostic.
Exactly.
Yeah, and to go back, like all the guys, I mean, and everybody in IDP world has gotten their hopes up from Mason Foster several times. But I really think that this is his chance to finally become consistently relevant on a week-to-week basis. And chances are, right now, if you were to acquire him, you could get him as like your LB6 or something like that. So I think he's a really nice buy right now. And Christian Jones is another young guy, came out of the football factory, down there. And I think Christian Jones has got a very bright future.
Yeah, Jones is. I don't really have a good read on Jones. Mason is a guy I'm definitely buying up, but that whole Chicago situation just feels like a mess to me, and I'd be hesitant to invest really at all in it more than I don't even know if I'd want to invest a roster spot in it if I could have a better flyer, even if it's similar value, just because it seems so sketchy. Besides Mason Foster, I don't know that I'd want to invest in anybody there.
I mean, it seems sketchy because it is sketchy. That's a bad defense, and I know that the Bears fans out there were praying when Leonard Williams started sliding in the draft that they could get him. I think they were 7th overall and ended up with Kevin White, which is a fine pick, I suppose. But I know they were wanting them some Leonard Williams in that new 3-4 scheme. But, I mean, in fantasy land, bad defenses, if you can get a good player on a bad defense, that's production. And the two guys you're going to look at are those linebackers because they're going to get run on, and somebody's got to make the tackles. I think it's going to be Foster 1, Jones 2, and then on the back end, I mean, I don't really hold a lot of hope for Brock Vereen, but I think Adrian Amos is going to be another decent buy back there at safety.
It's going to be Brock Vereen.
Of course you'd say Brock Vereen. We're all about Brock Vereen. Brock Vereen, boy, what a letdown last year.
He's another good buy low.
Just go buy Ryan Mundy. Don't go buy Ryan Mundy.
No, you heard it here first. Tyler loves Ryan Mundy. Buy him.
Chris Conte.
Yes.
No, Conte's gone, man.
I know, but he's still on another team you could buy him on.
Yeah, I think he went to Tampa Bay because we know how well they evaluate safeties. Mark Barron, that went well.
Oh, man. I thought he was going to be a stud. I really did.
I don't disagree with you. I mean, I did too, and his pedigree was fantastic, and he was a good player in college. And this time a year ago, everybody had him in their top 10, and it wasn't unwarranted. So I think we might be able to throw Mark Barron the way of Matt Elam at this point. Just whoops.
Yeah. Matt Elam was another guy I believed in. That, oops. But let's go ahead and move on to our final question. Comes from I don't know. Say it for me again, Tyler.
P. Swiney, our buddy Pat.
Yeah, I have no idea how to say it, and I still don't think that's the right way to say it. It's got a bunch of P's and S's and W's in it.
Swiney. Yeah.
P-S-W-S-W-I-N-E-Y. So if somebody can tweet at me, or Pat, you can box us and tell us how to say that. That'd be fantastic. But you guys need to follow him. He's a lot of fun to be on Twitter with. And if you guys have any football beliefs, he will tweet at you and tell you you're wrong and fight you on every bit of them.
Love it.
But he wants us to talk about some Debbie, and he wants us to know what player we're most excited about in the 2016 draft. Tyler, I'll let you kick us off.
I mean, the guy I like best is Laquan Treadwell. I mean, yeah, he wrecked his knee last year, and evidently he turned into a porker over the offseason. But Laquan Treadwell checks all the boxes. I mean, he's explosive. He's big. He's physical. He was highly touted as a recruit coming out of high school. Drew doesn't like him. He'll come around. We'll get him there. But Treadwell's my guy. If I had to pick let's say right now you say I have to pick one guy out of the 16 class, that's the guy I'm taking. There are several other guys, and we'll get them all hit on here. But Treadwell's, for me, is the cream of the crop.
You can ask me about my 2016 outlook in 10 months. That's when I'll start looking at it. I'm not ready yet. Yep.
Lazy
You better
stuff.
believe it. You better believe it. Hey, the tape's going to be there even more when we get there in 10 more months. Now I'm just going to have to fight to try and find good tape.
Hey, there's already tape on 2016 prospects on Draft Breakdown now. And actually, that was actually going to be my next announcement, was starting next week, we're going to start our prospect breakdowns for 2016.
Well, that's when
Not
I'll
even kidding.
ask me next week. Then I'll have at least one person I like.
All right. Well, my guy is Tyler Boyd. Not even close. I love this guy. He's super smooth, great at the point of attack, and I think this guy's going to be a stud. Just locked and loaded, number one. And if we're going running back, it's Ezekiel Elliott and it's everybody else. Just watch him in the championship game or in the other playoff game, and he's just running over these top tier defenses, making them look like children. Fantastic.
Yeah, and Zeke is fun because he does the old '90s thing where he rolls his jersey up under his pads. He's just kind of a throwback.
He's not allowed to do that anymore.
Really? That's no. I mean,
Yeah.
NCAA is just anti-fun.
Yeah, they hate
Just
fun.
anti-fun.
But it'll be good. We can watch tape on him and see how much that affects his aerodynamics. See if it transfers to the NFL.
Without those chiseled abs deflecting the wind. Yeah, and
Exactly.
I like Boyd a lot too. And Drew and I talked about Boyd ad nauseum a few weeks ago, and we kept coming back to he's similar to Devontae Parker, but he wins in the spots where Parker has trouble winning. So in some form, I think he's a better Devontae Parker. And a lot of people love Devontae Parker. I'm not one of them. I mean, I like a lot of things about his game, but there are a lot of things that I don't like. But I'm all about some Tyler Boyd as well. And the other running back that I like is Derrick Henry, who is just a beast of a man. I mean, this dude is huge. And to watch him play, he ripped off some big runs. You know what I mean? He ripped off some long runs for a big guy, so he can get up to speed as well. But Zeke is going to be, at least as of right now, the head of the class at running back. But I don't think Henry's all that far behind. But any of these four guys we've talked about, if you had to draft them today versus the 2015 class, I think we're looking at all these guys would fall right behind Gurley and Coop for me, and I'd be looking to acquire any of these guys, possibly ahead of the players that are in the class that we're in currently. I think they're that good.
I would have White over Treadwell and Henry. And
That's fair.
I would probably take Aguilar over Henry just because running back. But Derrick Henry is kind of a beast. He's everything that people wanted Brandon Jacobs to be in this just monster of a person. You can't bring him down. He's like Cam, except he can't throw the ball. If you're within 5 yards of the end zone, that ball is going in the end zone.
Oh, yeah. I mean, have you seen the dude's thighs? I mean, my God. Can you imagine trying to tackle this dude? And he can run.
They're bigger than my head.
And the dude is huge. But I am pumped for this 16 class. I am absolutely stoked for this 16 class, and I have been for a long time. And on some level, I've kind of looked past the 15 class in a few spots. And I've traded some 15 picks for 16 picks in anticipation of it being a really good class. And all we're talking about now is the top end. We don't know who's going to break out. They're going to be guys. I mean, you got the Mike Williams kid at Clemson, like the 15th Mike Williams in the last 5 years. Pharaoh Cooper. I mean, there are just a ton of guys coming out. And there will be under-the-radar guys that emerge a la Kevin White this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's some legit targets, and I would be snagging up to 2016 first like it's cool. I think this is going to be one of the better draft classes we've had in the last few years besides the 2014 class. And with that, I think that's going to wrap up our questions for the week, and we can move on to my rant of the week. And my rant of the week is, if you guys are not in enough Dynasty leagues, you guys need to talk to @JustinHustis on Twitter, or go to nasty26.com and get in on some Nasty 26 leagues. Hashtag Nasty 26. I'm in a ton of these guys' leagues. This is not a paid advertisement. This is just, these leagues are a blast. He runs excellent leagues, and they are $26 best ball leagues. There's no waivers. There's no free agency. It's 28-man rosters. It's full dynasty leagues. They're great because once you get into as many leagues as I'm in, it's really hard keeping up with each and every league week to week. So no waivers, super easy. Trades are open until week 14, so you get all the fun of trading with your league mates. And there's a lot of good guys in these leagues. It's all just points, so there's no head-to-head. All of it's played on MFL, and the funds are done through LeagueSafe. And they do a bunch of different variations. They got standard PPR. They do some auction leagues. So if you hate your sanity, get in on some auction leagues. They do super flex and tight end premium leagues. They do a crazy 32-team league with team QBs. I haven't gotten in on any of those. And a last man standing league, which I was in on the ground floor of that, helping him put those together. That's a lot of fun. But you guys, you need to look into these if you guys are looking to join more dynasty leagues, because they're a blast. Just follow in on some of these drafts on Twitter and just see how much fun we have, just on Twitter tweeting about the drafts. But that's all I got to say about that. I wanted to plug him on here and try and give him some more activity for his leagues.
Yeah, they're great leagues, and Justin's a hell of a guy. He's an awesome guy. He's really active on Twitter. He's a fellow Under the Helmet writer. He also writes for Dynasty Nerds. They're just cool leagues, and it'd be even a good league for a beginner if you're just, and I don't know how many beginners are listening to our podcast, but if you're just thinking about dipping your toes in the Dynasty water, this would be a great chance to go do it because you don't have to set your lineup, and you don't have to screw with waivers. I think we're going to have a few waiver drafts in season, so there's still a chance to acquire guys on waivers, but the effort it takes to maintain these teams is not going to be very time-consuming. And like Drew said, I picked up 3 or 4 of them just with the idea of, I can, scratch that draft itch and get in some more leagues with my buddies, and, it doesn't take a whole lot of maintenance. So just really, really cool leagues and a really good idea by him. I mean, it's I'd never even thought of it before until I saw that he was running these leagues. And, I'm all about it. They're really fun.
Good way to get your friends that are borderline about dynasty football into it. Give them a shot. Let them know that there's this way that they don't have to spend every week looking at their lineups, spend every week looking at their roster, figuring out what they're going to do. They could still look at their lame redraft leagues and have fun with those and figure out why everyone loves this dynasty so much.
That, and I mean, $26 is such a palatable price, especially once you factor in league MFL fees as well. Because if you're doing dynasty and you're not on MFL, I don't know how you're living. Because doing it on Flea Flicker is a nightmare, and trying to do it on ESPN or Yahoo.
Oh my God!
Kill myself.
I'm in one ESPN dynasty league, and I'm done with it. I'm getting out as soon as I can. It's terrible.
Hey, I commish a league on Flea Flicker, and this was our first off season, and the rookie draft made me want to put a gun in my mouth. It was horrible. And I'm so used to MFL where I can do anything I want as a commish. I can set that thing to do whatever the hell I want. And Flea Flicker, I'm just like, I don't know what's going on. They're like, are waivers open? I'm like, fuck, I guess they could be open. I don't know. I don't even know where to do it. So another plug for MFL. My God, if you're playing Dynasty anywhere but MFL, you're just... wow, you might as well be doing, algebra on an abacus. It's horrible.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's the best comparison. It's like using candles when you have electricity in your house. Because MFL is it's far and away the best dynasty platform. But I think that's all we got for this week. You guys have any last parting shots for us?
No. Hashtag don't be a butthole.
There you go. If you want to reach
don't
us
ever
on
forget
Twitter,
it. Yeah.
If you've got topics for the show for next week, if you've got questions to submit for us, hit us at hashtag Don't Be a Butthole, or you can reach Tyler or I at Your Dotson NFL or at HBomb9508. Guys, it's been a pleasure having you this week. This has been the Dynasty Playbook, Dynasty FF's dedicated podcast. I'm your host, Drew. You can find me on Reddit at EAF Marine, on Twitter at Drew Dotson NFL. With me have been my excellent co-hosts, Scott and Tyler. You can find Scott, Stewie35, Twitter, to be announced. And Tyler, you can find him on Reddit at Barles and on Twitter at HBomb9508. Thanks for joining us this week. We hope to see you again later.